days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Time to talk about 49ers news. So you're watching a 49ers news update right here from 49ers Cutback. There's a lot of news, from roster moves to injury reports as well coming out of practice. 49ers, of course, had practice today. So I'm ready to get all into it. I'm looking forward to this episode for sure because there's just a lot to talk about. And first off, let's go ahead and let's start with the injury report from today's practice. And we had some guys who were limited. We had some guys who were out. Some of these names were interesting. Did not practice today. Eric Armstead with a foot injury. Of course, Daniel Brunskill with the hamstring. Tyron Davis-Price, we all know about with the ankle. And Tyler Kroft with the knee. And then Trent Williams gets his normal veteran day. So that is happening right there. So as you can see right now, Armstead, the one that's the key, the foot injury. That's something to monitor throughout the week. We'll see how Eric Armstead ends up coming out of this. If he ends up practicing on Friday, he's likely to play. But that could potentially be a big move because the Denver Broncos want to run the football. One of the main reasons that teams have struggled to run the football against the San Francisco 49ers is because of Eric Armstead and the way he plays against double teams. So we definitely need Eric Armstead out there. We need him to play. So this is an injury that we must monitor. I think the good news is George Kittle was limited in practice. So Kittle was able to get out there and practice again. Last week, it was just Friday. This week, he's getting a little bit more active and getting out there earlier in the week. I think that signals that George Kittle is potentially going to play on Sunday, and that's good news because the 49ers just lost Tyler Kroft. You lose the guy that's been starting the games for you, and then you insert an all-pro tight end. You got to feel like that's a huge advantage for the San Francisco 49ers, so that is really good news. And the Broncos are suffering with injuries as well. Their defensive end, Randy Gregory, he didn't practice. He had a knee injury. Jerry Jeudy dealing with ribs and shoulder. The shoulder what kept him out of most of the game last week. Then DJ Jones with an ankle, so a familiar name for the 49ers. Quinn Miners is hurt with a hamstring. Darius Phillips with a hamstring, and Patrick Surtain, their big-time corner, is dealing with a shoulder injury. They had limited practice guys in KJ Hamler, the speedster, Josie Jewell, a calf, and Caden Stearns, a young safety, hip problem. So those are some of the things. They had K1 Williams. He ended up practicing even though he had a wrist that was bothering him. So those are the injury updates coming from the 49ers, coming from the Denver Broncos. And I'm a little worried about Eric Armstead, of course. You just never want to see someone get hurt like that. And KNDR says if Armstead doesn't play, that means Fred Warner has to make more splash plays. Oh, signaling that KNDR has watched 49ers face off over on Patreon. Well played. I love that. Absolutely fantastic. Yes, where Jay Hill is talking about how Fred Warner needs to make splash plays. If you haven't seen that episode and you're on Patreon, go check it out. It's a good one. A lot of fun moments and funny moments. And if you're not on Patreon, go check it out. Sign up for Patreon and check out that episode of 49ers Face Off. Him and Horst go at it, and then I end up getting involved as well because it was just, it's just interesting. Now, the 49ers also made some roster moves today as well. They went ahead and they promoted Marlon Mack to the active roster. Mack, of course, last week signed to the 49ers practice squad, and then now he's being promoted. I don't think they expected to promote him this early, but when you have the injury to TDP, a high ankle sprain, TDP wasn't put on the IR, so that means they're hopeful he's going to be back in 3 weeks because an IR stint would mean 4 weeks at least for TDP. So the 49ers are hopeful. They did not need to use his roster spot, so they went ahead and kept him and Tyler Kroft off the IR. But Marlon Mack comes up. He's a guy with a wealth of experience, a lot of time playing in Indianapolis, a really good running back, had over 1,000 yards rushing for them in a season. And then he was on Houston to start the season. In fact, played against the 49ers in the preseason, had some pretty good moments. And Kyle Shanahan had some very nice things to say about Marlon Mack, saying that, Mack looked really good, that he picked up the offense really fast, and he was looking like a guy that they could really count on. And that's good news because you're going to need him. Potentially you're going to go out there with Jordan Mason as well. So we'll see. Count Club says foot injury for Armstead. Anything specific? No, they haven't clarified yet. So if I get anything in specific as far as specific as far as what is going on with that foot injury, I'll be more than happy to pass it along. But right now, that's how it's being reported. So if we get more information on it, I'll definitely get into that for sure, Account Club. So hopefully we do get more information as this week progresses, or in better way, maybe he just ends up coming back and not having to worry about that. More news because you have the move of Marlon Mack, elevating him to the active roster. The 49ers went ahead and signed a veteran running back, and they brought in a familiar face in Tevin Coleman. So Tevin Coleman worked out for the 49ers last week. They did not go with him. They went with Marlon Mack over him and Devontae Freeman, who had been guys who had played for Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. And, of course, Coleman had played for the 49ers in their 2019 big-time season that they went all the way to the Super Bowl. In fact, he was a big part of that, starting some of the playoff games. So Coleman is back. I believe this is an insurance policy in case something doesn't work out with the other guys. So Tevin Coleman will be there just in case. So your running backs for this week, it's pretty clear that it's going to be Jeff Wilson Jr., who played really well last game, Jordan Mason, who looks to get his first carries of the game of the season, and then, of course, Marlon Mack, who's been elevated and is on the active roster now. Those three guys will roll. Tevin Coleman will be on the practice squad in case you unfortunately suffer another injury. And Count Club says, and will Jordan Mason get some burn this week? I think he will. I think Jordan Mason is going to get some carries. I expect Jordan Mason to get between 7 and 8 carries in this football game. If he does really well in those carries, it could always cause more. PDP got 14 carries last week, but he ended up getting hurt. I think Kyle Shanahan kind of errs on the side of caution, gives Jordan Mason some carries, but also gives Marlon Mack carries as well. So you're looking for Jeff Wilson Jr. to get 13 to 15 carries, and then for the other two backs to split 7 between them. You throw in some more carries for Deebo Samuel, and all of a sudden you've got the carries you need to win the football game. So I think that's how they're going to go ahead and handle it, but we'll see. The good news is the 49ers had a veteran player that's capable of stepping in. He already understands this offense. So if something does happen, the 49ers are equipped to continue to take on these running back injuries. Crazy to think that when we broke camp and 53-man rosters announced, 49ers had 6 running backs and 5 tailbacks on their active 53-man roster, and now there's only a couple guys left that were on that active roster. So they've definitely went through players, and the 49ers keep insulating themselves. Mack was a great pickup. Tevin Coleman is solid. Those are nice moves for the 49ers overall. That's very well played. And BB50 says Jerry Jeudy could be out Sunday night. That would be a big loss. And you're right. I've been starting to break down the video. Actually, I've watched it a couple of times, but I'm going to do my breakdown video for Patreon, breaking down the Denver Broncos in their game against Houston Texans for a scouting report video over on Patreon. And Jerry Jeudy's been a big part of the offense for the Broncos in the first 2 games, including a big-time touchdown against Seattle Seahawks in Week 1. I broke down that last week. So it's going to be interesting to see what this offense looks like without Jeudy. Of course, they have Cortland Sutton. He's big-time, so I know they'll be counting on him. And then they have speedsters as well, like Hamler, but Hamler's dealing with a little bit of injury. So we'll see how healthy he is as we move forward. And what's up, JLE? How's it going? Lee Adams says, time to get a new training staff. All these injuries are not bad luck. This is a pattern. It depends on how you look at it. If it's soft tissue things, hamstrings, things like that, you could probably blame the training staff. If they're contact injuries like sprained ankles, I don't normally put sprained ankles on a training staff because there's no way to prepare your ankle to be able to withstand, a body landing on it and you not getting a sprained ankle. So I don't put sprained ankles on them, but if you want to argue other things and other injuries, go right ahead. I think that there can be an argument there. I'm just not willing to take it there. I think that there was the conversation about that in 2020 and early 2021, but I thought they've done a really good job with rep management, managing these players, and doing the best they can. When it comes down to it, you still have to go out and play the game, and injuries are going to happen. It's just unfortunate that some of these, are happening to their running backs right now. Ernest says, I tried calling Trey Lance at Stanford. They said no one was registered under that name on Tuesday morning. Interesting. Interesting, Ernest. I like the fact that you went and called. And then JLE says, what number did Mack get? I saw at practice he was wearing 23. So Marlon Mack has been wearing 23 at practice. I'm guessing that's what he ends up wearing. Of course, he's not going to wear traditional 25 because Elijah Mitchell is wearing 25. So I fully expect him to wear 23 when he's active for the game on Sunday. And what is up, Harold? Welcome to chat. What is up, Malik? How's it going? I hope you're having a good one as well. Henry says, I hope this doesn't affect Brandon Aiyuk this year, the Jimmy switch. I hope not as well. But I thought, Brandon Aiyuk still had a big game. Now, he had a big catch from Trey Lance early where he got over 20 yards. That was his long in the game. But he did overall catch 3 passes from Jimmy Garoppolo and ended up having 4 catches for 65 yards. I think that's a good football game for Aiyuk. I think him catching the ball now, as experienced as he is on the run, is going to benefit him. So I think he'll be okay with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think what you might miss from Jimmy and Aiyuk could be the deep passes down the field. Now, they did result in pass interferences this week. Jimmy leading them up, throwing them a little bit behind. Brandon trying to work back towards the ball. If they can find some chemistry on those, there might be some big plays down the road. But we'll see. I think, right away you wonder about Jimmy's arm strength. So far, so good. He looked okay. And what's up, Shooter? How's it going? I always love when Shooter comes in. Harold says Tevin Coleman is back. 49ers signed him to the practice squad. Absolutely. We just talked about that a second ago. Here's the picture for you right here of Tevin Coleman. We broke it on social media as well. So I thought 23 was Mason. Mason is 24, JLE. So Jordan Mason went to 24 once Kadar Holman got released. And 23 had Ben Jamichael Hasty. That number was available, and Marlon Mack has been wearing it at practice. Another thing that happened was the 49ers signed a quarterback, and we knew this was going to happen once Trey Lance went on IR. They were going to make a move, and they did. They're adding Kurt Benkert to the roster. Kurt Benkert had played with the Green Bay Packers, so he's a guy that already understands this style of system. The 49ers brought him in for a workout last week. They brought in a lot of quarterbacks this time. They brought in A.J. McCarron. They brought in Mike Glennon, a lot of guys. And Benkirk was the guy that they ended up rolling with. It makes sense to me to put him on the practice squad. You hope that you never have to use him. You hope that he's just there to get reps, help out in the QB room. But you wanted to make sure you had 3 guys. So you bring this guy in on the practice squad. And now the 49ers roster is more similar to last year. We have 2 quarterbacks up on the main roster and then 1 on the practice squad. They have more availability for other players on their active roster. And what's up, David Campbell? How's it going? Always love when David's in here as well. So I think that those are some of the things, that are going on with this 49ers team. And there was also a guy that got waived, and that was Kerry Vincent. So Kerry Vincent ends up getting waived. What's up, SG? How's it going? He was on the practice squad for 1 week. The 49ers brought him in last week, took a look at him, and decided they were going to go ahead and move in a different direction. So he's gone. So the 49ers continued to make their flurry of moves. And all the while, we've got George Kittle now potentially playing this week. I don't know how everyone feels, but George Kittle would be a nice welcomed addition to this 49ers offense. I think they could use him, especially with the loss of Tyler Kroft. But him in the run game could be hugely beneficial. You got Randy Gregory suffering with injuries, and then you got Bradley Chubb, who's absolutely fantastic. So the 49ers might be able to use Kittle and McGlinchey to take advantage of Gregory on the edge and be able to create some run lanes for their team if they can move guys off the spot. Of course, you got big Jonas Griffith, but George Kittle's used to blocking him. He used to be with the 49ers a couple years ago. So we got a couple questions. And Boba says we should make a deal to make Derrick Henry. Titans suck this season. I don't think that Derrick Henry's going to be on the market. If Derrick Henry is on the market, I'm sure there's 29, 30 teams that'd be interested in picking him up. But what would it take to get him? Probably a lot. I don't know if they'd be willing to do that. Shooter says with a $4.99 super chat, thank you so much, Shooter, for the gift. I really appreciate it. And you think with this Trey injury that the Niners will use it as a rally cry to get that 6th ring? I definitely think they're going to be motivated, Shooter. I mean, you have to be motivated when you suffer an injury like this to be able to go out and attack. And I think they're going to want to. And I think there's going to be the similar push to what you had last year. It was just last year in the playoffs that Deebo Samuel said he wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to win a Super Bowl to make it really hard on the 49ers front office. Of course, they did not win the Super Bowl, but that was part of their motivation. I don't know if they can continue that again this year. I know they were extremely happy for Jimmy that he got the opportunity again. They like Jimmy. Do you want the circumstance of Trey Lance getting hurt to provide Jimmy that opportunity? No. But now it's just reality, right? Jimmy's going to be in that spot, and I think this team understands this is it. This is the last ride. Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers, can they win a Super Bowl? I think it's important to Kyle Shanahan in the front office, and I think it's important to these veteran players to win a Super Bowl because time is ticking. You don't know how many opportunities you're going to have. Yeah, you have a young quarterback, and that young quarterback's eventually going to possibly get you to that promised land, but when is that going to be? And with the injury, it's probably pushed back an extra year. So it'll be interesting. It really will. But I think that is Cool. David Campbell, my guess is Russ is still acting corny. You are right. He does do that. And if you watched Slightly Offside, Horst definitely got into that a little bit about Russ, for sure. And SG says thoughts on Broncos Russell Wilson, and David comes with a perfect response. Russ has had guys dropping footballs. His team has not helped him out this year. They've been dropping footballs. And we got a super chat from Bobo, says, I still believe we'll win the Super Bowl this year. I love it. Thank you so much, Bobo, for the super chat. And thank you so much for the positive vibes. Yeah, I want to win the Super Bowl. The defense is Super Bowl caliber. As long as this offense can continue to score points, they have a chance. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think they can. PV says, Ant, this is off subject. Watching the Steelers-Patriot game Sunday, I was shocked by the retired numbers they have. It's a wonder they have any left. Yeah, and that's something actually that they had a conversation with Jed York about during the offseason, and he discussed the fact they might need to start bringing numbers back into circulation. Leave them, of course, up and recognize those players, but you're running out of jersey numbers. So retiring jerseys now might not happen. So you might start bringing some of these numbers into circulation, or you're just going to run out of numbers. Of course, you leave Joe retired. You leave Jerry Rice retired. Maybe some of the guys from way back. We'll see. But I think they're going to be picky and choosy. Will they leave a Jimmy Johnson's number retired? We'll see. I'm very, very curious to see if they end up bringing any into circulation. But it might have to happen. The NFL already started allowing different players to wear the single digits, and I think a lot of that went into the fact that teams like the Steelers had so many jersey numbers retired. So yeah, that's a good point. I actually agree with you, BB50. That's interesting. SG says, what are your reactions? Quarterback Trey Lance, who suffered a broken ankle injury when the 49ers played the Seahawks in their home opener at Levi's. I was disappointed. I was disappointed. I didn't want to see a player get hurt. I never want to see a player get hurt, especially when it causes them a season. Like, I think you react a little bit different when it's a couple weeks or, a few weeks and they're going to be coming back. Even Elijah Mitchell, like, okay, 2 months sucks, but he'll be back. But when it's an entire year like that, you're going to lose all those reps, and you just feel for the kid who's worked his entire offseason to become quarterback one. He gets that position. He goes out there, and he's trying to put his best foot forward, and it just doesn't work out. And it's one of those things where he plants and, he takes a hit and boom, your ankle goes. I felt for him. It was a punch to the gut at the moment. And then it was like, all right, we got to rally behind this. I've coached and been a part of those serious injuries where you see someone leave and you've got to be able to turn it back on. And it's not easy. Not easy to get over those injuries and look at everybody in the eye and be like, hey, we got to rally and get this thing done. But, I've seen teams that just fold after that. You lose the game because you just can't get over the fact that one of your teammates got hurt. But a veteran team like the 49ers have seen these injuries happen before. Lots of players have had these serious injuries and they've been able to rally and get it done. And they did that even with Trey. So, the mindset of this team is definitely in the right place. So that's exciting. Henry says, any updates on Jason Verrett? No, I haven't heard anything on Jason Verrett. Of course, he can come back after week 4. So after the Rams game, he's allowed to come back. And they may need him because there's going to be a stretch of games, once they get past Carolina and Atlanta, where they're going, with a tough stretch of Kansas City, Los Angeles Rams, and then Los Angeles Chargers. Those aren't easy football games, and you need to win those in that stretch. And if you do, your chances of making the playoffs go through the roof. So I think that 4 to 6 weeks, so kind of Carolina or Atlanta would be a nice spot to kind of reinsert Jason Verrett back into this team, because then he can get his feet wet against those teams and not have to go out there and in this first time back against a team like Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. But I've heard nothing but that he's healthy right now, and I think that's a good sign. SG says Jimmy Garoppolo will be quarterback 1, Purdy's quarterback 2. Yes, that's definitely the case. JL hasn't heard anything on Jason Verrett, which was always a good sign. Henry says, any updates on Jason Verrett? Okay, so you reiterated it. So yeah, it's just that. That's really kind of where we are with the injury news as far as Jason Verrett. There has been no other new news, which is good news. The 49ers injury report is pretty basic. Not a lot of guys who are hurt. You have Armstead with the foot, which is, I think, the most concerning. Brunskill hasn't been able to come back from the hamstring, but he'll get back at some point. The injury list is pretty small. It's Armstead, it's Brunskill, of course, Davis Price, Tyler Kroft, and then George Kittle's limited in practice. So the coaching staff overall has got guys coming back, training staff. And then you've got, of course, Jimmy Ward will be coming back here pretty soon as well. And that's that's good news for the 49ers. You need these guys to be able to come back and, and help your football team. And I think they can. And there's lots of good news coming out about Aaron Banks too. He's been trading really high. Kyle Shanahan had some very nice things to say about him as well, which is great. And what's up, David V? How's it going? What's up, Ernest? It says, Ant, do you think it's going to be running back to Mack or Mason? I think it's going to be Jordan Mason. I think he's going to be running back too, but I think Marlon Mack's going to play as well. We'll get Mason to get some of those carries, but I think Mack will get carries. I think Mack might be in there on third down as well. If it's not Debo and Jeff Wilson Jr., because they trust him in pass protection. I think Jordan Mason's goal in this game, he'll get a few carries in normal sets, but also in short yardage. It'll be a time to use Jordan Mason, but he'll come in there and he'll spell Jeff Wilson Jr. So splitting the snaps between Marlon Mack, number one, to keep him healthy, but also Jordan Mason, I think is a good way to handle it. But a lot of it depends on what kind of scheme the 49ers plan to run against the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are going to bring 5-6 guys to the line of scrimmage. They've done it consistently through 2 games. And then they've got the guys on the edge between Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb that make it difficult to run the ball. So the Niners are going to have to get this run game going, use the gap scheme, move some of these edge rushers off their spots. So I think that's going to be fun to watch this week. 49ers Faithful Forever says, I'm late. What's up, guys? How's it going? Always good to have you in chat. Henry says, how is Jimmy Ward looking? Haven't heard any reports on Jimmy Ward. An injury like his is always a little sketchy and scary. But the fact that there hasn't been anything so far, I fully expect after the Los Angeles Rams game on Monday Night Football, not this week, but the next week for week 4, I fully expect them to open a practice window for Jimmy Ward. So that way he'll have a couple weeks to get ready and come back. I don't know if we'll see Jimmy Ward against Carolina or Atlanta. I would fully expect him to come back, probably before Kansas City on October 23rd. That would be my guess. I think that's a target for him to come back. And really, Tayshaun Gibson has bought you so much time because he's grading out to being one of the better safeties in the league right now, playing next to Taonu Ufonga. That is great news. Ernest says, do you think Seattle is intentionally hurting the quarterbacks? No, I don't think so. I mean, if it would have been like a dirty play, then I would have said yeah. But the fact that Trey Lance planted, and it was trying to, make a move and then had contact and the ankle just went, I don't think that is, Seattle intentionally trying to injure anyone. So I don't think that's the case right now. But we'll see if things continue to happen, down the road. David says, just need Brunskill back for the Rams. Yeah, I'm hoping Brunskill is going to get close. I don't know what the extent of his setback was. Only that Kyle Shanahan said he had a setback before week 1. I think the 49ers, the way they talk about him, they had some sort of role for him. Right now in the interior offensive line, Banks and Burford are playing really well. The weakness is Brendel. So the thought process has to be that if Brendel doesn't step it up here in the next couple weeks, that Daniel Brunskill is going to take over the center job when he's ready to roll. So we'll see. I mean, it wasn't a bad enough setback that they decided to put him on IR, but, at some point you're going to need Brunskill back. And this is interesting and different for Brunskill because he doesn't normally miss football games. He's normally healthy and out there playing. That was the one thing him and Laken Tomlinson have done, or did their entire extent with the 49ers. They played in games, which is huge. Ernest says the Niners need to pull an eye for an eye next game against Seattle. This is the second year in a row they pulled that BS. To be honest with you, the 49ers hurt the Seahawks more by letting Geno Smith continue to play quarterback for them because it just continues to amplify his weaknesses. He has to get the ball out quickly, and if you smother and take away those short routes, he's just not going to have any success. There's no willingness to go down the field. So Seattle with Geno Smith at the helm is exactly what the 49ers want because you can beat a Geno Smith-led football team where at least with Locke, Drew Locke gives them the ability to whip the ball down the field. He's enough of a wild card. He'll take chances and make plays. I'm hoping Geno consistently does a little bit better and better. Not enough to win football games, but enough for that. It depends on what your comment is, SG. I'm sorry if I missed it. Let me know what it was. Oh, is this the one about I played football? I played football in high school, and I also sprained my ankle, and all my teammates were feeling my pain. They felt bad for me. They were happy, but I returned to the team. Well done. Well done to coming back from the sprained ankle, for sure. And then SG says thoughts on Tevin Coleman. I like Coleman, especially in this role where he's on the practice squad. If you need him, you break the glass and he's ready to go because he understands the system. He's a plug and play guy. You can trust him on third down. You know what you're going to get from Tevin Coleman. Is he as explosive as he was in Atlanta? No. Is he as good a running back as he was when he first came to San Francisco? No. But what he is, a guy that consistently go out there. And he had 48 carries last year for 352 yards for the Jets. Is it anything spectacular? No. But when you're putting someone into Kyle Shanahan's system that understands already, you have the potential to at least get something out of him. So I think it was a smart move. And when you put guys like that, key veterans on the practice squad, you insulate yourselves in case something happens. Heaven forbid Jeff Wilson Jr. goes down. Or heaven forbid Marlon Mack comes down. Now you have another key veteran that's ready to roll if something like that happens. BB50 says, Ant, maybe I missed this on earlier podcasts, but Ross Dwelley had himself a nice game. He did. Ross Dwelley has been being successful, especially in the passing game. There were some struggles early in this season in the blocking game. Now, he did a little bit better in week 2 than he did in week 1. That's good news. He has to block at a high level. That's why Tyler Kroft logged double the snaps in week 1. He was the one making the blocks. He was the one that was, making the big plays. Dwelley showed up, though, caught the ball, had the one catch for 38 yards and a touchdown from Jimmy Garoppolo. That was big. So, yeah, I think Dwelley's done a pretty good job overall. And the 49ers had an absolute ton of depth at that tight end position. We'll see how much opportunity Dwelley has in this game. But I think running 2 tight ends, this is a little glimpse ahead, running 2 tight ends and taking advantage of the safeties and linebackers of Denver could be something the 49ers try to do. Not only does it help you in the run game, but help you in the pass game as well. With these linebackers having to commit to the run, you can create voids behind the linebackers in front of the safeties to be able to make plays. So I think that's possible. Twisted Clown says, Ant, read my comment. Pick me. I know it's your show and all. Here, LMAO. Oh, well done, Twisted Clown. Twisted Clown always comes through with great comments. Love it. 49ers Faithful says, Ross missed the block when it led to a TD for Seattle. Ross struggles a little bit in the blocking, and this is one of those concerns that made it possible for him not to make this roster this year. Would he be able to block good enough? Now, they kept 4 tight ends. Charlie Warner came back late from the injury, but Charlie Warner, he's a great blocker. Maybe not. He's not as good as Ross Dwelley in pass. So putting the receiving game with Ross Dwelley in it and putting the blocking game with Charlie Warner in it, they make a very good tight end. Now, what you're hoping is you're going to get enough from them in each other category so that the other team can't completely lock in. Like, oh, when Charlie Warner's in, it's a run. When Ross Dwelley's in, it's a pass. But yeah, when you miss blocks, it creates, bad situations where the 49ers can't produce touchdowns. And in week 1 against Chicago, there was a lot of missed blocks. Jawan Jennings, Ross Dwelley, Aaron Banks, they missed blocks that could have been touchdowns or could have been third down conversions. Those don't help your football team. But what does help your football team, though, is making those blocks. So hopefully Dwelley gets better. He was a lot better in 2019, and slowly that fell off. I don't know exactly why, but I'm hoping they're going to fix it. I would love to see Dwelley do some things. Bomber T says, do you think Brock could win some big games? I think with this roster he could. And we're seeing SG said thoughts on Brock Purdy as well. So I'm just going to talk about Brock. I think Brock Purdy is a young guy it made a lot of exciting plays in the preseason. He understands, what it takes to throw the ball down the field in these tight windows. He does pretty good. I think I don't know how Brock would do in a 17-game NFL season or having to go in there and start in the regular season against the most tremendous talent in the world. He was playing against, third stringers. Did he look good in those games? Absolutely. Would that step up in competition against starting caliber NFL players? Would he still produce the same, that he did in preseason? I don't know. But I do know he impressed enough to get the 49ers to be willing to keep 3 quarterbacks on their active roster. That has to say something. I think Purdy's a guy that they want to develop to be the eventual backup in San Francisco, and that if something happened, he could come in and win a couple games because he's an absolute gunslinger. But you don't know what he's going to be yet. And he's a young guy that's learning, and I think I want to see how he continues to develop. But I think if you had to ask him to come in and win a game, it might be tough, but I think he would give it his all, and he'd go in there and he'd do the best he possibly could. I don't know if he'd get it done. But with this roster, as long as you could get some points on the board, this defense has the opportunity to stop people enough to help you win. So it's definitely possible. 49ers Faithful Forever says Brock has a weaker arm than Jimmy. He doesn't have the strongest arm. And some of the throws, it was on display in preseason. But then he had some of those throws where he's throwing in these really tight windows. You're like, ooh, okay. But Brock can make those kind of throws. So if he understands his limitations and can work around them, and you can scheme it up to work around them, then he can be a player for your team. If you can't, and he can't, learn to work with his limitations, then it's going to be a real problem. SG says, when do you think Brock Purdy will develop into a great, talented quarterback? And I would love him to take that job away from Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, he's not taking Jimmy Garoppolo's job. Jimmy Garoppolo has, the quick release, the understanding of the offense. He can come up to the line of scrimmage and he can get you, he can change the blocking. He can Oscar and move the blockers a different way, flip the play opposite. He can come up there and he can can the play, get you into the right run and pass. His command of this offense, Brock Purdy's not taking his job, especially in year one. I can argue that I don't know if Brock Purdy would ever be able to take a job from a starting quarterback in this league. I like Brock Purdy, but that's a lot to ask of a guy who's 262nd in the draft to be able to come in and take a job from a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo that's been around and understands the ins and outs of the NFL and understands coverage. So I do like Purdy. Let me keep that straight, but Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely a better quarterback. And 49ers Faithful Forever comes with a nice question here. Do we see Teray this week? We could. The fact that they're going to be playing at Mile High, they're going to have a probably a real big rotation in certain positions. It would be smart to have an extra defensive lineman, especially because you need to be able to stop this Denver Broncos run game. Javonte Williams is really good. Melvin Gordon is really good. They're going to have to stop these guys, and it's going to be difficult. But having an extra defensive lineman can do just the case. Now, if Eric Armstead's not healthy, it's a done deal, right? Teray's going to be that guy. But even if Armstead is healthy, you might have Teray just in case, because then you might have to slide one of these outside edge rushers like Kerry Hyder inside as a rotational piece. So I think that's something to monitor as this week continues to go, for sure. SG says, I would love to see Brock Purdy do the icky shuffle when he scores a touchdown. I would love to see anyone do the icky shuffle. That was always fun. Bomber T says, Brock is young. I think he's going to develop into a solid quarterback. I think he'll be pretty good. Bubbles says Jimmy G over Purdy all day and night. Yeah, I'm with you. Jimmy G's proven that, he can help you win football games. Brock Purdy's still a young guy. So Ziggy says, hey, finally caught a live stream. What's up, Ziggy? How's it going? Welcome to chat. Shooter says, I didn't want to see Purdy play unless it's a blowout. Yeah, I don't want to see him play unless it's a blowout either. So I'm with you on that. I think, Purdy was fine in the preseason. He did enough to make this football team. Let's hope we never have to see him. Let's hope Jimmy Garoppolo plays every single snap the rest of this year. And I hope if he's ever in the training room that, it's like Bud Kilmer walking in there and to Billy Bob and saying, don't worry, you're going to play every minute of that game. That's what Jimmy Garoppolo's got to be playing in these football games. That's the 49ers' best chance to win with him at the helm now that Trey Lance is hurt. Malik says, I believe Kyle will let Jimmy throw down the field more this season, given the pieces we have on offense this season. Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely agree with this. In fact, I was over on Chapman's Patreon for the bonus episode, and we talked about that. And I said the exact same thing. I fully expect them to throw the ball down the field more this year because of the fact that Jimmy's kind of like, hey, man, let's just let something happen. I said it's like he's on red kryptonite. It's like, who cares? I got my back against the wall. Let's just go let this thing hang out. Let's go see what can happen. Jimmy, referenced 2017. I thought that's when he played the most loose and free. So I think that's probably, a good way to go. And Seth's killing me right now with bringing in Bortles. No Blake Bortles. No. We don't want that. John Paul says, did you see how the Jets used Tevin in the return game? Interesting. I like him on a veteran team with championship goals. I like him as well. I think right now Jordan Mason is going to get the special team role from the running back position. And I think Marlon Mack, being the veteran that he is, probably won't play a whole lot of special teams. But if you ever needed Tevin Coleman for special teams, he can help. So I think as he gets acclimated to this 49ers team again, I'm sure there's some new plays he doesn't know, but he understands the system. He could be beneficial down the road as a special teamer. And he wasn't against playing special teams when he was with the 49ers. He did that even when he wasn't getting reps at running back. So I kind of like him overall just being a part of the team. What's up, Moses? How's it going? Says, what's up? I'm new here. Big 49ers fan since 1984. Favorite player is Ronnie Lott. You can't go wrong with Ronnie Lott. I mean, Ronnie Lott growing up, that dude just hit everybody. I loved it when he absolutely took out, James Woods and Icky Woods in the Bengals Super Bowl 23. He was just smacking dudes. So yeah, Ronnie Lott, one of the best cornerbacks, and then a lot of people forget that he was cornerback first before he became a safety in the league. So that's a great choice. Well done, Moses, and welcome to the 49ers Cutback. Ziggy says, do you think Kyle's play calling will change? Will it be the same as years past? I think it's going to be very similar, right? Kyle does what Kyle does. Now, he takes advantage of the opposing defense. So whatever they do to try to stop him, he wants to counteract. So with the Broncos 3-4, they're going to want to put, 5 guys, 6 guys along the line of scrimmage. So he's got to find a way to operate and attack that. One of the easiest ways is to pin their outside linebacker, kick him down, and then get outside with a toss play. You've seen that a little bit last week against Seattle. Now, these edge rushers and outside linebackers like Randy Gregory, Bradley Chubb are better than what we saw from Seattle. So it's a tougher task. You could beat those guys with a Jawan Jennings or, with a Charlie Warner. They might be a little bit more difficult this week. So the matchups change. So you have to change your philosophy. But when it comes down to it, his philosophy is simple. He wants to run the football starting with his outside zone principles. Everything comes off that gap scheme, inside zone, all of it. And then he wants play action off of that because when those linebackers have to engage to help stop the run, you're able to fire the ball in between that void in the defense between the linebackers and safeties. That's where Kyle likes his offense to live. Now, he does do extra things like throw the ball down the field when he has a quarterback that can do it. If Jimmy's going to do that this year, then you're going to threaten teams vertically. With Jimmy, you already threaten teams horizontally. So I think play calling will look similar. It's just maybe Jimmy will take advantage of more of the deeper routes and more deep intermediate routes than he has in the past, which could fundamentally change the way you view the offense overall, though. But, he's still going to do what he does. Twisted Clown says, wish you would have had Trey thrown downfield. Highly doubt it. Run heavy now. It's going to be run heavy for sure. It's what Kyle does. David says, history tells us Jimmy will get dinged at some point this season. I'm not letting it happen. Not this time, David. Not this time. You're right, though. History says that Jimmy Garoppolo misses games. Jay Hill wanted me to say over under 2.5 games Brock Purdy starts. I said he's not starting in this. Jimmy Garoppolo starting all the rest of the games, all 15 left in the regular season. Nothing but Jimmy. That's just what I want to believe. Christopher Blankenship says, who's number 2 behind Coleman? I think it's Jordan Mason. I think Mason's number 2, and then Mack is 3. And I think the way they use those 2 guys, though, is going to be interesting. I think short yardage more for Jordan Mason. I want to see what he can do with the ball. I'm sure Kyle does as well. TDP did okay last week. He had moments where he flashed. His numbers overall didn't turn out to be great, but I think they're going to give it a chance with Jordan Mason. But I look for Marlon Mack to get carries as well. And thank you, Shooter, once again for re-upping your membership. I really, really appreciate that. That's big time. Always love when we get people re-upping. It's big time. So thank you so much for that. And then let's see what we got going on here in the chat. Bomber T says, what if Jimmy plays damn good this year? I think it ends up with results. So if 49ers Faithful Forever says he walks regardless, I do believe that if he won the Super Bowl, not only would teams come calling for him, but I think the 49ers might think about it. If he doesn't win the Super Bowl, he's gone for sure. I think at only Super Bowl do I think that there's any recourse in him potentially coming back and then making it a quarterback competition between him and Trey Lance. But I think in the back of their minds, they'd like to move to Trey Lance and that rookie pay scale because that's how they're going to be able to pay all these guys. That's kind of what they've planned. So it would be hard. And SG's asking me about the Geico commercial when Icky Woods does the Icky Shuffle. Yeah, I saw that a lot. That's pretty good. Christopher Blankenship says, heard Trey may be ready for playoffs, but I understand if Jimmy is healthy, they'll go with him. You go with Purdy and Trey if Jimmy can't play. Yeah, and I did see that, and then Kyle Shanahan kind of put the kibosh on that and said, no, Trey is done for the year, which means that they might just think that it's not worth potentially rushing him back for the end of the year, and just letting him get healthy, rehabbing, and then having the entire offseason to prepare for 2022. Now, you never know, they could change their mind, or 2023. You never know, they could change their mind, but that's kind of my understanding is that they're going to roll with Jimmy now. So, yeah, that's what 49ers Faithful is saying. Kyle, confirmed that. Ronnie says, what's up, Ant? Just joined the signing of Coleman and elevating Mack. Does that mean Jordan Mason won't be used only for special teams? No, I think he's going to get used. The 49ers like to roll with 3 active running backs on their roster. That way, just in case something happens, you have guys that are ready to roll. So elevating Marlon Mack is because of TDP's injury. Now you have 3 guys that are going to be able to play. Of course, TDP will be an inactive. Tyler Kroft will be an inactive because they're not healthy, but you don't want to put them on IR. So that's kind of where you're at with it. I do think Jordan Mason's going to get some carries, though. So that's good news. Ziggy says, yeah, that's what I mean. I think he calls plays that are cautious with Jimmy, and I think Jimmy can do more than what Kyle calls him. I think we're going to find out. Kyle's in a different mind set than he has been in years past. So I think we're going to find out real quick how these guys handle it. And Marvin Rose's injuries are part of the game. And what's up, Marvin? Welcome to chat. So, yeah, it is. It is. And Shooter says, no problem, man. Love the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everybody that, takes the opportunity to come on here and have a conversation. I really enjoy interacting with everyone and just, talking ball, talking 49ers. Who doesn't love talking their team? Bomber T says Trey needs to sit on the bench for another couple years. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, he's obviously going to sit on the bench this year. He's going to work on his mental. He's going to go through all the reads and everything. I'll do all the things he can do. But I mean, I don't think they have the luxury of waiting a couple more years because his contract's going to come up. So I think you're going to have to make some sort of a decision here pretty soon. Moses says, how I became a Ronnie Lott fan, the Monday night game, the hit on the Giants, Mark Bavaro, boom, I believe was the call. Yeah, it's fantastic. What a hit. And Mark Bavaro, man, one of those guys that you just love to hate. He always played well against the Niners, big physical guy. I mean, now looking back on it, like I appreciate it, but at the moment, not a fan of Mark Bavaro as a 49er fan for sure. But yeah, that's a good one. Ronnie says, Ant, what's the biggest matchup you're looking forward to against the Broncos? I think one of the most interesting ones to me is actually going to be DJ Jones against Jake Brendel. They should be pretty familiar with each other from all the reps last week. And of course, DJ Jones is dealing with a little bit of an injury. So the fact that DJ Jones has something going on with him, could mean that, Brendel potentially is going to have, a chance. But they have two former 49ers in DJ Jones and Mike Purcell that get most of the reps on the inside. I think Brendel's athleticism can outweigh anything that Purcell can do, and that they can win in that situation. I think they can double him, push him back to second level, and create run lanes. But I worry about DJ Jones because of his quickness, because not only is he big and physical, but he's also fast. I think that's something to take into account. But that's a matchup I'm looking for. It might not be a sexy one. It's interior defensive line versus interior offensive line. But I think the 49ers are going to have to give Jake Brendel some help against DJ Jones. I just don't like that matchup overall, for sure. Everyone's talking about the big hit. The big hit by Ronnie Lott. I appreciate Moses for bringing that up. It brings up nice moments and thoughts. And Candy R says, what do you think of Bowman getting nominated to the Hall of Fame? I mean, he deserves to be in that conversation. I mean, of course, Patrick Willis is going to have to get in there before Navarro Bowman does. But, I mean, those two guys were two of the best to do it at the linebacker position in this league for a stretch of time. Now, Bowman's injury ends up preventing him from having the end of the career that he deserved. Of course, it was, Patrick Willis's feet that got the best of him. But that injury against Seattle completely changed Navarro Bowman's career forever. And I think he would have been, played another 3 or 4 years at a high level and been a bona fide Hall of Famer. So I hope he stays in this conversation. I don't know if he's going to get in because the injuries really did skew his numbers towards the end. But I would love to see it happen. I really would. And Marvin says Trey needs to learn how to read defenses. I think he does. And I think he needs to learn to read how Kyle Shanahan reads defenses. Understanding what your play caller's seeing and getting in the same mindset. You have to be able to take what Kyle sees and be able to do it on the field. That was what made Joe and Bill so good, right? Joe could take what Bill Walsh saw, and he could be an extension of him out there on the field. And I think that's part of the problem with a young quarterback. He's learning. If maybe during the season they would have figured it out, and if they did, that would have been wonderful. This team would have been to all-time heights. But figuring that out is difficult, and I think it just comes from time together. Being able to see how your play caller sees things is really, really important. Yeah, heck of a tight end, big guy he was. Bowman, he was great. Ronnie says, what's the biggest weakness of the Broncos defense? I believe the biggest weakness of the Broncos defense is their linebackers. I know they got Jonas Griffith, but they commit so hard to the run. And then they lack the overall correction speed. They are a little bit questionable in zone coverage as well, which I've seen Seattle take advantage of. I've seen the Houston Texans take advantage of. They also will put them in situations where they have to cover a speedy receiver across the field. How you put both your linebackers in coverage against Brandon Cooks when he's dragging across the middle is beyond me. And Cooks ended up catching it because he smoked them and got a big play on it. So I think that is the major weakness for the Broncos defense is that linebacker group. I think they're good against the run, but sideline to sideline, you have a little bit of questions, and then in coverage, I have big questions about them. Jay Ellie says, don't they have former offensive tackle as well? Don't they have a former offensive tackle as well? I'm trying to remember who they have on their team. I'm trying to remember all the guys for sure. It's hard. Let's see. I have an offer for CeeDee Lamb for AJ Dillon. Should I accept the trade for CeeDee Lamb? I have running back Taylor Williams and Chubb, but running back Waddle, Robinson, M. Brown, and Cooper on my bench. Actually, that's an interesting trade, right? Getting CeeDee Lamb for AJ Dillon. I think Dillon's going to have himself some production this year. You already have Chubb and you have Taylor. I would go ahead and make the move. Go ahead and add CeeDee Lamb. I think after seeing who you have on the roster, I think that is a smart way to go. So yeah, I think I would do that. Marvin Rose has one read and then taking off doesn't get it. That's a problem with a lot of guys. Now, I do think he's trying to go through his reads. I think that Trey Lance tries to go through his reads. I think he has worked progression 1 to progression 2. I just don't think he's going progression 1, 2, 3, 4 yet. But that takes time. That takes a lot of players' time. It took Steve Young time to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Joe, by the middle of his career, I mean, that's what we got so spoiled to. He could go 1, 2, 3, 4, back to 2, and find his receiver. And then Steve ended up doing that as well. Those are special players. Those guys that has that kind of vision. Right now, Trey's on a 1, 2, and then start moving around. I think eventually he'll get to 1, 2, 3, and then eventually 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when he's able to use the whole field, that's what you're working towards. But it's hard for all veteran quarterbacks, let alone a young guy. And Sacktown says, win one for Trey. I love that. And said Marvin Rose says, who will be guarding Kittle? Just want to be able to identify the poor guy getting beat. I think it's going to be a combination of the safeties and linebackers, and then sometimes they'll bring in corners as well. So they drafted a guy I'm huge on. Jay Ellie would know this, is Damari Mathis out of Pitt. He was one of my favorite guys, and they've been playing him a lot in the slot. So you have K'Wan Williams and Damari Mathis that come in their sub packages because Mathis has safety ability as well. So I think we'll see him a little bit on George Kittle as well. But Kittle has the size advantage. But I love the dog and Damari Mathis. I think he's going to be an absolute player in this league. And Sacktown Easy says, win one for Trey. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And Marvin says, Kaepernick never did learn. I think that was a definite problem for it. But I wanted to thank everyone for coming through this episode of 49ers News Update. I had a lot of fun with all of you guys here in chat. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, but really enjoy it. And tomorrow we're going to have our live Q&A, so hop onto the live Q&A tomorrow. We'll get more into the latest 49ers news that's coming out. And, of course, you guys can ask any questions as well. Tomorrow the game preview show comes out. Let me know what you think about it. I'm going to go through my key matchups, give some Wild That's Bold predictions, and then overall pick the game, who I think is going to win. But thanks, everyone, for watching. I really appreciate it. Stay safe, and remember the right way is always the 49ers.